In this lesson, we are going to experiment with Adobe Illustrator to learn many basic tools that you'll probably be using a lot during the rest of your time using Illustrator. It's going to be a really basic little scene with a cabin in the woods, and I'm going to build on your skills as we go. So the first thing we want to do is click on the AI to open the program. So it takes a minute to load, and once this box pops up, I find that it's not really very useful for me. So I always close it by clicking on the red button. And then we need to set up our workspace. And to begin our workspace, we need to have a document. So we're going to go up to File, New. It's going to give us a dialog box, and I'm just going to name it Cabin with my initials at the end, just to make sure it's not mixed up with somebody else's in another class. Now I want to make sure the size is letter and the width and height is 8.5 by 11 inches. The units is very important. Make sure it's always in inches when we're working on projects in this class. Orientation should be vertical, so your little man's standing on a skinny piece of paper. Once you have that set, you can hit OK, and you've got your workspace. Now I have a couple little palettes that I've kind of opened up already, and before we even begin, I would like to show you how to reset your tools in case for any reason you close some palettes and things don't look like they usually do. So to get things back to normal, let's all just try to reset it for now, just so we all know how to do it. We'd go to Window, Workspace, Basic. Now you'll notice that your tools and your palettes are now hidden, or actually just in a different configuration. So I always want you to just click once on the top of the tools. Now they're double wide, as I like to say, and the top of the palettes, and they will be expanded. Now you're basically ready to go. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is draw a square. Now I like to remind people before they even start working in Illustrator, the black arrow is your best friend. It's the one that moves things around and adjusts things, resizes, and you pretty much go back to that black arrow quite a bit. The white arrow does something completely different. We'll get into that later. So we're going to click the rectangle, and also notice if you click and hold any of the tools with the black arrow in the corner, there are many other tools hidden behind them. So let's start with the rectangle tool, and we want a perfect rectangle. So we're going to hold down our Shift key on our keyboard as we drag this rectangle. Makes a perfect square. Let's make a nice big one right in the center of our paper. Now just for a reminder, if you start trying to move it or do anything and you still have the square selected, you're just going to keep making more squares. So you don't want to do that. You want to get your black arrow. Move it around. Say I don't like this square, or I accidentally made 2 or 3 squares and don't want those anymore. Get your black arrow and just click and delete. Click and delete, and they'll go away. Now I like this square, so I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to change the colors. The color in the center is indicated by the fill icon on your toolbar. Now the stroke color is indicated by the stroke square, and whichever is on top is what is going to be changed. So I have this white on top. I will go over to my swatches, and I'm going to choose red. Now I want to change the border color, but right now the border or the stroke is very, very small, and I want to make the stroke thicker. So right over here you'll see the word stroke and weight. We want the weight of the stroke to be 8 points. Okay, now that the stroke is 8 points, we want to change it. Right now if I chose a color, it would just change the fill. If I put the stroke icon on the top in this section, I can now select a stroke color. I'm going to choose a green. Kind of looks like a square watermelon right now. If I click away, I can see the actual item. If I click back, it's going to be highlighted with its selection boxes. And I'm going to pull this down toward the bottom of my paper a little bit. And now I'm going to create a door. So this is review, same thing. Just get your square tool, just a little rectangle right over the top of this space. And I'm going to change this. I have the stroke selected. I'm going to change it to a purple stroke. And let's put the fill color on top and make it a yellow door. Okay, if I get my black arrow, I can move it wherever I want within that space. Okay, moving on, we're going to use a new shape. Now we want to make a roof on this little cabin. But as you see in the tools, there is no triangle. So there are a couple tools that will do this trick, but we're going to use the star tool. So when you get your star and you begin dragging, you see a star. If you push your down arrow on your keyboard twice, you'll see a perfect triangle. And to make sure it's not tilted when you let go of your mouse, hold your shift key. It'll keep a nice, perfect, straight triangle, and then when you let go of your mouse, you will have a triangle that you can get your black arrow and move onto the roof. Now, if I wanted to just kind of nudge this over to make it fit, I can just grab the box right here. Now we're still working with the basics here, so this obviously isn't the fanciest thing you'll ever make, but we're learning about fill and stroke, basically. So let's get our fill color and change it to blue. And as you can see, nothing happened when I did that. This is really common. People do this a lot. I had nothing selected, so Illustrator doesn't know what I want to change to blue. So now when I click this, it's selected, and I change to blue, it will actually change. Then I want to change the stroke color, so I put stroke on top, and I want to change it to orange. Okay, so I'm getting closer. I've got a little cabin. I'm going to put a chimney on the top. And for the little chimney, I'm going to use a rectangle tool. Drag a rectangle right on top, and this time I'm going to do something different. I'm actually going to remove the stroke altogether. I don't want any border on this. So I make sure the stroke is on top, and I hit this little icon that says none. And now there's no stroke. I'm going to change the fill color to a gray, and I'm going to send this to the back. I don't want it on the front of the roof. I want it peeking out from behind the roof. So I'm just going to go Object, Arrange, Send to Back. That's about all I need to do, except the one last thing is we want to make this house grouped. If I move things around right now, all the pieces could come apart. So I'm going to drag around all the parts with my black arrow, and I'm going to go up to Object, Group. Now, a lot of people tend to use keyboard commands, which is a faster way to do much of this in Illustrator. I always use the menus when I do demonstrations because then people can really see where I found the information. When I click away and click back, now everything is selected. If I move the house, it all moves together. Now this last step is one of the most important things, and that is how to constrain your proportions. If I click this and I just squish my house down, I could make it all different proportions, which sometimes you want to do. But most likely, once you've made a nice little house, you want to keep the proportions similar. So if you hold Shift and shrink, notice the house stays proportionate. That's going to wrap up the very beginning of this lesson. I'm going to keep adding on to it. So make sure you understand fill and stroke and how to create your shapes, how to send front to back, and also how to constrain your proportions holding the Shift key.